I only have 16 minutes, so I'm going to dive right in because I feel like the clock is ticking. We have 16 predictions. As Siobhan also said, it's for the next 5 years, not just for this year. And the other thing I was asked by the National Bank of Abu Dhabi to consider doing today was to encourage social media engagement. So those of you that are on Twitter, please be active. In fact, I'm going to help you. So the first thing you need to know is there's a hashtag for the event, hashtag GFMF2016, and we'd like you to tweet about this session. That's one of the things they're encouraging. So I've now used 20 seconds, so we're going to keep going. Before I begin, actually, there's one statement I think it is important for all of you to remember. John Kenneth Galbraith once said, there are two types of forecasters in the world, those who don't know and those who don't know they don't know. So I'll let you decide which one I am. Okay, prediction one, the clock is down. China, I believe the credit-fueled investment bubble in China has burst. That means growth is going to fall before they move to a consumption-oriented economy. It is my belief in the next 5 years you will see GDP growth hit 5% or lower. You can tweet that if you want. Number two, Australia. I believe Australia is a casualty of this investment bubble bursting in China. And that means real estate prices in Australia are likely to come down. The immigration rates into Australia are likely to slow. The consumer society that's there is likely to stay somewhat resilient because of the currency sort of moderation. But let's not fool ourselves. Australia has had an uninterrupted economic expansion for more than 2 decades. In the next 5 years, I believe that's at risk. It's conceivable Australia has a recession. Now, let's have a tweet. Tweet suggestion. I want to encourage you, and I know some of you are new to tweeting, so here's a little tweet idea. I've counted the characters, less than 140, and you can just type it as is. @Mansharamani says Australia to struggle, and for those of you that are in the hedge fund business or associated, you'll understand the next sentence. My portfolio is already down under its high watermark, and I know I'm holding you from coffee, so please, no more when it's the coffee. Next one, energy and oil. Low energy prices actually spur demand for energy. So with oil prices, I believe, as Daniel Yergin said this morning, that we will see a rebound and strength from current levels, although never really going back up. So what you're going to see is the societies such as China and India that are energy consumers will use more. On the margin, low energy prices spur demand. They also push off alternative energies, with one exception that I'd ask you to think about and consider. Fusion. Fusion is the attempt to put a star in a bottle, basically to produce almost unlimited electricity, the byproduct of which could be water. This is a big development we need to watch. Silicon Valley is now targeting this sector, and that scares me because they can make some breakthroughs. It's worth watching. Next one, Canada. Canada is thought to be one of the world's safest economies. In fact, the banks have often been thought of as some of the safest in the world. Yet, I think it's time to take pause here. Canada has had a housing boom that has not slowed down. It has gone effectively up since 1990 with a little ripple in 2008. Combine that fact with household debt levels. If you were to look at household debt as a percentage of disposable income in Canada, that ratio would look almost identical to Greece. And that's a fact that very few people know. So it's my belief that there is a consumer recession coming in Canada. Further, the historical reason they were able to support this consumption society was they had good job growth. However, almost all the job growth since 2008 has come from the province of Alberta, which is where the oil sector is. Those jobs are now shrinking. And so I believe Canada has a consumer recession. Here's another tweet idea. You can actually share it. Say, oh my God, Canadian household debt approaching Greek levels, eh? Because you want to make it sound Canadian. Who knew? And then add @Mansharamani. Okay, I'm going to keep going. I apologize for talking so fast. Africa. We have a consumer middle class that is starting to grow in Africa, and it's growing quickly. And there's also a population boom in Africa. For instance, Nigeria will have more than 1 billion people in a state that is roughly the size of Texas by the end of this century. That's an interesting fact. And so we also have other parts of Africa where we're seeing real economic uncertainty snowball into potential instability. I would point you to South Africa. Unemployment rates and underemployment rates, 50, 60% for certain age categories, higher for the blacks than for the whites. This is a recipe for a revolution and perhaps instability. Worth watching. Technology. I was earlier on CNBC and I was talking about naked unicorns in subprime valley. Unicorns are the private market companies valued at more than $1 billion and are traded only in private markets, not yet listed. I believe many of those are exhibiting bubble dynamics. They don't have business models that generate income, and as a result, they, I believe, are going to hit the wall and run out of money, and you'll have a slowdown. And in subprime valley, I call it, because the money is so easy. They're not checking the validity of the business model before lending money or investing money in these unicorns. Here's another tweet idea for you. @Mansharamani says, naked unicorns are roaming in subprime valley. But of course, many people don't think technology can go down, so you can add that tidbit. Robots. We are facing a world today where there's too much capacity, too much supply, not enough demand. And so if you think about this as a chronic demand deficiency syndrome, if you want to talk about it as secular stagnation, what it means is robots improve productivity, which means we do more, increase capacity with fewer labor involved. And that's actually going to exacerbate the problem. And all of you that have jobs where you think you're immune, we might need to pause and think about that. Robots are coming, they're getting smart. So here's another tweet idea. Robots will never take my job, or will they? Getting tired of Mansharamani's gloom and doom. When's the coffee? Okay, Saudi Arabia. Of course, we've all talked about oil prices and where oil prices are and the budget supporting those oil prices. I believe in the next 5 years, you're going to have massive tightening of government budgets. And in Saudi Arabia in particular, this could prove problematic. And this could be potentially disruptive. And it's something we need to watch. So we'll pay attention to that as well. India. I was on the panel yesterday talking about India and the growth prospects for India. I think India is a wonderful country. It has great growth prospects. However, it lacks appropriate infrastructure. It doesn't have it hasn't yet clarified or simplified the bureaucracy. And frankly, you can make in India, it's just not clear you'll be able to ship or get out of India, whatever you make there. So I think it's something worth stopping and pausing on. The Make in India program, the attempt for that to create 100 million jobs, I don't think it's going to happen. I think we'll be lucky to get 20 million jobs from this program, partially because of my prior prediction, which is robotics and automation are taking more of the productivity levels up in manufacturing, resulting in less job creation. India may in fact get manufacturing. India may in fact get foreign direct investment. India may in fact grow, but don't think it's going to create lots of jobs for that particular strategy. So another tweet idea. This is horrible. Even the one country I liked has risks. @Mansharamani could depress a bride on her wedding day. Need coffee. Okay, cyber. I believe cyber technologies and cyber risks are growing rapidly. This is now moving, and I think this is a prediction I'm willing to make. In the next 5 years, it is highly conceivable that this turns into a new form of conflict between state actors as well as between companies. So corporate warfare, corporate espionage, international espionage, governments, cyber is a hot topic. It is also starting to infiltrate corporate boardrooms. I believe just as we have financial audits today in many companies, that we're going to end up having cyber audits and technology audits tomorrow, demanded by independent consultants should come in and do those. So that's worth watching. Japan. Japan has struggled for many decades now to get out of their economic malaise. This is a problem. They've had too much, they've got a demographic problem, they've had deflation, and many people say, what's the solution to Japan? In light of the fact that we have a demographic problem, I would like to propose for you a tweet that may help solve this problem. Here's my suggestion. Tweet idea. I have a solution to the economic. Put men and women in the same room, lower the lights, and play some slow music. This could solve the problem, albeit with a lag. It'll take 17 years for the workforce to grow. Okay, Europe. I know we've had a couple sessions today that have touched on the topic of Europe, and so I'll just be, I'm watching the clock tick down here, so it's starting to get stressful to get through them all. But Europe, I believe that in the next 5 years, the pressures are building such that the existential question of will Europe survive becomes increasingly topical. And I believe also, not unlike many others, that we will either have the United States of Europe or we will revert to many states. And I think that dynamic is going to be forced because of the refugee crisis and others where national boundaries are now reemerging as an important topic. This is something we definitely have to watch. And I think, sadly, I believe we're going towards a dissolution, not a union. Because you cannot have currency union and monetary union without the political. And I think that fissure is too extreme to overcome. Central banks, here's my prediction. You want to know where I think rates are going? I don't think they're going up. I don't think they're going to go up materially. I don't think that they may not even go up. And in today's world, it's conceivable they could go down. Because the global environment that I've just described in some of these predictions and some of the global dynamics I sense from demographics to economic growth and otherwise are all pointing towards slowdown, uncertainty, instability, etc. That leads me to believe this is not an environment in which the Federal Reserve will raise rates by 100 basis points this year. I think there's no inflation, not that I can see, and in fact, there's deflationary pressures. Raising rates in the face of deflation is a policy mistake I don't think many central bankers want to be associated with. With that said, there's a little uncertainty because the US is in fact growing and is hanging in there. So here's a tweet idea. Finally, something that might help my portfolio. At Mansharamani says, Fed unlikely to raise rates much this year. Again, if you're on Twitter, try this. It might be a neat way to experiment. Public health. When I came up with my predictions, I do these predictions every year. They're posted on my website and LinkedIn profile every January. I had in my mind that in the next 5 years, another global public health epidemic would rear its ugly head. At the time, I was pointing and thinking in my head that the Middle East respiratory syndrome was the most likely candidate for this prediction to come true. Little did I know that the Zika virus would step in and start impacting, at least in Latin America, and potentially the Brazil Olympics. So I think public health in the next 5 years will rise. We may have another scare, and it could be problematic. It will introduce risk into the portfolios that you manage, and it'll affect economies. Ask Brazil today when they're trying to get the Olympics to work. The Pacific Alliance. This is a group many have not heard of and is critical. This may, in fact, be what the Atlantic magazine has called the most important alliance you've never heard of. 4 countries got together, Colombia, Mexico, Peru, and Chile. And what they decided was that they were going to form a trading bloc and interact with the world on that basis, that they would allow free trade within their bloc and then allow other countries to join slowly over time. At this point, the 4 nations represent the 8th largest economic bloc in the world and are the 7th largest export bloc in the world. This is going to be important. This may, in fact, prove to be the alliance through which Asia comes to Latin America. So combine that with the fact that Colombia is on the verge of ending a 50-year civil war, that you have a good recipe for positive here. And lastly, the US presidential election, something we can't ignore when making predictions over the next 5 years. What I believe is likely to happen is, regardless of who wins, they will disappoint. And when they disappoint in 2018, I think we're going to have a massive shift in Congress, and it'll flip-flop from whatever it is then to whatever it will be in the future. Now, with specific relation to Donald Trump and trying to tie in the social media here, I'm going to suggest this tweet. At Mansharamani suggests at real Donald Trump. Now, if you mention him, it'll appear in his Twitter feed, and he'll know that you're actually thinking about it. But he's a serious contender. Expect more centrist statements. I think actually he has been playing a game that has been to win a nomination, but he may not actually believe some of the things he says. And I hope, really for my sake, that he's going to become more centrist, and then when he tries to win the real election. So a real force, you need to pay attention, you have to watch it. So we've done that now in 15 minutes, so I have time for an audience poll. And let's go to that audience poll. Please take out your voting devices, and here we go. What did you think? I did it in 15 minutes. I think that was an accomplishment. So you can say number 1 was great, learned a ton, I want more. Number 2, 16 minutes of your life that you'll never get back, and for that I apologize. Number 3, you're leaving more confused than you were before you walked into this session. And then number 3, and then number 4, finally, thank God, time for coffee. So please vote now. Yeah. It's getting high tension for me. See what the audience says. Let's see what they say. Oh, wonderful. Thank you. At least there's time for coffee, so thank you all for listening. The last tidbit I'll leave you with very quickly, for those of you that actually want more than 30 seconds of thoughts on each of these topics, my website actually has full-length articles on virtually every one of these topics, and they're also posted to my LinkedIn profile, and you can find me on Twitter, Facebook, all that other stuff. So anyway, there's more content where this came from. If you actually do want more, rather than just being polite, then you can get it. Thank you. 16 minutes exactly.